Your parents never give you warm milk growing up?
No.
Me neither.
Because that's freaking weird.
Yeah, that's the opposite of good, in my opinion. All right, looks like we're on Facebook.
This is 63. I've lost count.
63, yeah. Looks like we are on the Twitter.
Boy, the air conditioning is nice in here.
Looks like...
Oh, screw you, Gordon.
No, I don't know why it's really warm outside.
We're live on Twitch, and we're live on YouTube.
Hopefully I don't sweat as much as last week. I was looking back at it when I was wearing that Randy Moss jersey, and by the end I had like patches going on and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
I was inspired. I was going to wear my Raiders jersey, but I didn't.
Yeah, sweet. All right, I think we're ready to roll. Why don't you address your loyal fan base?
Hey everybody! Wait, this one? No, that one.
The usual one.
That one?
No, the one with the monitor.
Oh, so that one's the usual one.
That's the usual one. No. Well,
right.
that's the other one's the usual one when we do like the reviews and things like that. This one's the usual one for the podcast.
Got it.
Yeah,
it's amazing. After 63 episodes, I still don't know this. But hey, everybody, we're gonna be talking about GeForce RTX, right? And everybody got the number wrong. We'll talk about that. I'm excited, and Threadripper 2. We'll break that down some more, even though we've already done that in a video. So that's how that was my airline pilot voice. We're going to be taxing about 30,000 feet. Turned off the no seatbelt.
Perfect.
Let's do that. The captain has turned on the seated belt, and we should be into San Francisco by 2 o'clock.
All right, cool.
Adam's like, let's just keep it moving now.
All right.
Yeah, now we've lost everybody. Hey, but you know what? That's tells you how, people can stick around. G4, I don't even know. Brad's got all the dealio on this, so let's talk about it. Ready? I don't even know. I want to find out from Brad.
Yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
In this episode of The Full Nerd... Damn it. All right, there we go. In this episode of The Full Nerd, GeForce RTX 280 and Threadripper 2 arrive. Welcome to The Full Nerd, episode 63. I'm your host, Gordon Ung, with co-host Brad Charkis.
Gordon, it is just past noon on Tuesday, and this is already one of the more exciting hardware weeks I can remember in a while.
It's insane, isn't it? It's just finally, it's all breaking loose finally. And Adam Patrick Murray is controlling the boards.
Gordon, it's not that often I get to say this, so I'm going to say it. I was right.
About what?
I called 2080. Everyone else said 1180, but I said 2080, so...
I called out.
Do I get a donut?
I was right because I called out that they were going to throw, because everybody was absolutely sure it was 1180. I said, "Oh, come on, it's going to be something else. They're just going to change it just to mess with people. They've called it 2080. They're probably going to change it by the time it comes out. It'll be 3080 just to mess with everybody." But so it's here. It's finally. This is a big day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so last night at SIGGRAPH, which is a professional conference for professional graphics, computer graphics, and whatnot, Nvidia announced the Turing GPU. Been rumored for months and months, gone through all kinds of different iterations. Is it Volta? Is it Turing? Is it Ampere? It's Turing. Now we know. And announced new Quadro RTX GPUs that are built using it, which, is different from GTX. RTX stands for ray tracing, which is a fancy way of modeling light that makes much more realistic images. It's much more computationally expensive. It's considered like the holy grail of graphics. Earlier this year, Microsoft built it into DirectX. And now NVIDIA's new Turing GPU is going to have...
Oh, they cut us off. Look at that. They cut us off. Oh, wait, he's back. Wait, holy smokes. He's caught in the Matrix. Sorry, you really there was like... All right, here we go. Try it again, Brett. You got cut off right where you going to break the news. You got cut off right at... They introduced...
the Turing GPU.
There we go.
So Turing, they've been teasing, was it Ampere? Is it Volta for years? Now we know it's Turing. And
So
they also announced Quadro RTX GPUs.
Right. Is Turing for everything? So the actual I'm confused because it is a professional graphics conference. So they really announced GeForce there? Sorta? Whoa, this is just we're having all kinds of problems with Brad's connection. It's the heat, folks.
I feel like it's not my connection, it's your connection, man.
Could be. They're trying to interfere with this. Wait, so it really is GeForce though, announced at GDC. No, wait, damn it. Which one is it? I can't remember.
GDC earlier this year, they announced that the next gen GeForce cards will have RTX technology built right in. Which we don't know if that's the same thing as RT cores or not at this point, but it all plays together, obviously. There are several things you can take looking at the Turing GPU and the Quadro cards and kind of take a guess at what we're going to see in the next gen GeForce cards, which, as it turns out, could launch in 6 days.
Really?
Yeah, last night, shortly after they announced this Turing GPU, Nvidia put out a tweet with a video, I think it was Be the Game hashtag or something like that, that hyped up the August 20th event at Gamescom. And if you were paying close attention to some of the details in there, it basically told you everything that's coming. Because if you, at the very end of the video, at the 52-second mark, with the date, it's, August 20, 2018, they had the numbers rise up in specific order. 2080. And then after I saw that, I went back and I started looking because it had flashes of like people talking in Discord and stuff. And one of the conversation was between somebody named Roy Tex with capital R, capital T, capital X, RTX. And he was chatting with somebody named
Roy Tex. That's pretty good.
Not 11, who says, "Give me 20, I'm eating."
I called it. Hey, is there any significance from RTX to GTX? I don't know.
Yes, there is. RTX is for the ray tracing cores built right into the Turing GPU, dedicated hardware for ray tracing. That's what the R stands for, presumably. The CEO of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, talked it up and said it's Nvidia's most important innovation in more than a decade, since the CUDA core. Real-time ray tracing is kind of the holy grail of graphics. We'll have to see if that proves out to be true, but it's definitely, like John Petty, the analyst from John Petty Research, he named after himself. He's a respected graphics analyst, and he says straight up, this is 5 years sooner than we expected to see something like this. So
GTX is no more then. It's just going to be RTX then?
The interesting thing is this past weekend, Adored TV and video cards, Adored TV's on YouTube, video cards is a leak site, both found, inside information and trademarks that, suggested, hey, GeForce RTX is coming several days ago over the weekend. And Adored sources say that the high-end GeForce cards, the 2070 and the 2080, will be RTX, but the lower-end cards, the more affordable ones, will still be GTX, which kind of makes sense because ray tracing takes a lot of power. And even if you can squeeze into the high-end GeForce cards now, it might not necessarily be able to work with a 2060. And so it wouldn't make sense to brand that as RTX if it doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any sense of how long it's going to take ray tracing to get integrated into any games? I mean, does it make sense to buy it for this generation?
Well, I mean, I would never buy anything on the promise of the future. We're still waiting on DirectX 12 games. But when Microsoft and all the other companies announced DirectX ray tracing API at GDC earlier this year, they said there will be games this year that launch that have it enabled in some way. They won't be fully ray traced, but they'll have ray trace elements in there mixed with traditional rasterized graphics.
So that's probably what we'll see first, because I mean, it is really a big deal to move to real-time ray tracing, but the pattern we've sort of seen in the past is they'll have a new feature. Most of the cards, both AMD, ATI, and Nvidia, generally can't fully support it to the full extent that you would expect, but it sort of builds on itself over the next several generations.
Yep.
Right. So.
What was I going to say? Yes, that's true. Sorry.
Do we have any specs in the card? I'm guessing they're using HBM2, which I know they didn't. I just want to say that. Anyway.
You are wrong.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I did it intentionally.
No, we don't have any specs about the GTX or RTX. Pardon me. That's going to take me a year to stop doing the RTX 2080. We do have some specs basically about the Quadro RTX cards and the Turing GPU. One thing that's interesting, I remember what I was about to say now, is that the Quadro RTX card was actually able to run that impressive Star Wars real-time ray tracing demo by itself on a single card.
Really?
Which, yeah, if you've ever seen that video, it's pretty amazing. And traditionally, when they show it running on PCs like at GDC and E3 and everything, it's in a rig with 3 or 4 Volta cards in it. So to have it running on one GPU is really impressive.
Yeah, even when Hayden and I saw it at E3, they did have one rig doing the Star Wars one, but the other one, had 4 of the whatever I can't remember what
Titan
was it.
Titan V's, 4 Titan V's
yeah.
just to run it. Wow.
So Turing, these Quadro cards at least are built using GDDR6 instead of HBM2. These will be the first cards to have GDDR6. If you look back, you remember the GTX 10 series, the high-end cards had GDDR5X, and the more mainstream cards had GDDR5. The Quadro RTX has GDDR6, and that should be about 40% faster than GDDR5X. So that's, pretty significant boost. There's no reason, I think, to expect it to not be in the 2080. I would fully expect that to be in the 2080.
And it's also a boatload of RAM too, right? In that one of those cards, isn't it?
Yeah, those are. I didn't look too much into that yet because those are, the business versions of the cards, the data center versions. So those things get loaded up.
16 gigs, I think, is the spec I sort of breezed quickly in the email. So, which is one
of the more interesting thing though, is that they're redesigning Nvidia's streaming multiprocessors. Like the building blocks of the GPU. They're shifting it up a bunch. You can read the article on the site. I quoted it. It has a new integer execution unit. Bunch of big words. You don't want to hear me say them right now. Trying to explain them. But they're completely changing the way, not completely, but they are changing the way streaming multiprocessors work. They're building in some tricks that first showed up in Volta into this. So it's going to be totally different from Pascal.
Well, so did they actually demo running that Star Wars demo on one card? One single, I'm guessing a Quadro, but...
He said it at least. I don't know. I didn't actually have a chance to watch the thing live myself. But I know that he quoted it. He said it. So
that would be just really impressive, I got to say.
Yep.
To go from 4 Titan V's to 1. Of course, they were kind of telegraphing that because they were showing how hard that was using the last generation parts.
Yeah.
So you knew somebody was like, oh, look, this does it with one card.
So, yeah, it's because these have RT cores in them. They're called ray tracing. I assume they mean cores. And they say that because of that and in the Quadro cards, they have the tensor cores as well. And between that, they can process ray tracing 25 times faster than Pascal, basically. So it's a huge leap, at least in that specific ray tracing application.
Jeez, yeah, that's nuts.
I know. It's just like I just wonder. I mean, how much that's all going to cost. We won't know till it launches. But damn, right? That is just all kinds of amazing from
it's also
point of view.
It is. It looks really encouraging. They didn't release too many hardcore technical details, speeds and beats, so it's hard to draw too much to what you would expect out of a GeForce card. But the one final thing of note, I think, is that the Quadro cards have native support for Virtual Link, which is the new industry standard, basically, except for Sony. For a VR connection, it's an alternate mode of USB-C, so it's like one USB-C cable, Virtual Link cable, to connect everything you need in your virtual reality headset. So I would expect that to land in the high-end GeForce cards as well.
Wow. That'd be interesting because basically the back of the cards will have a USB-C connector.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if it can be used for just normal data transfers. I'm sure it does if you can do. It's got a standard USB. So wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We can't.
We got people asking. I mean, how much do you think this is going to be? Because this doesn't sound cheap.
For the consumer version.
Yeah.
What's the
well,
2080?
I think I guessed it last week. I think I guessed 750 for the 2080. That's my guess.
That's now it seems kind of low hearing about all this stuff. Ooh.
Well, these Turing GPUs, the ones I showed last night in the Quadro, like if you compare it to a Pascal GPU, the GTX 10 series, the entire GTX 10 series is all shader and compute cores, whereas on these new cores, like half of it goes to tensor cores and RT cores.
Uh-huh.
And this is the Quadro data center version.
Right.
So I'm sure they're going to, not sure, but I would expect them to strip some of that out and fill it with more, shader cores in the consumer version. So
That'll be really interesting because the future is ray tracing. The past is about, shader performance.
Mm-hmm.
How do they balance how to build these cards? I mean, is it possible that a 1080 could actually be faster than a 2080 and some legacy? Well, we'd call them legacy, which is existing games, right? I mean, that's going to be an interesting balance they'll have to take. Well, I mean, we'll find out whenever it launches. So
it's strongly looking like, according to that video, like August 20 in Cologne, Germany.
Does it?
Oh, you mean Drake's birthday?
Drake's birthday?
Just kidding.
Oh, I understand.
Not Drake's birthday.
Put in that video, they even put like one of the Discord things was I wish.
Dang it.
Was somebody saying, Aki, like here in Spanish, and then they had GPS coordinates, and if you put them in Google Maps, it pops into a specific place in Cologne, Germany.
Nvidia just likes playing these games because I remember at the Pascal launch too, they had the crazy number triangles and just all kinds of crazy things, and they're making it's like Where's Waldo kind of clues or.
Yeah.
Do you?
That's funny.
So I can't imagine. So if we're gonna have the Quadro that's gonna have 16 gigs, all these tensor cores and all that stuff, I mean, where the heck do you find where's the consumer version gonna land? I just don't.
Yeah, that's always the question. They announced basically two different versions. They announced three different cards, two different GPU versions last night in the Quadro cards. One fully stuffed, one not so fully stuffed. Usually the GTX 1080 is basically similar to the not quite so fully stuffed one. And then, months from now, the 2080 Ti will come out and it'll match the high-end Quadro card, is how it's traditionally gone.
Do you think this is a little bit of we're sort of breaking the traditional, 980, 970, 960. They're all the same, just less performance. So you just crank down the resolution. But this sounds like these lower end cards won't even be able to run ray tracing at this point if they're not getting the RTX. Possibly. We're just speculating here.
Not anywhere near as well. If the lower end cards don't have those RT cores built in, then they wouldn't see that massive boost to ray tracing that the high end ones do. But, because they have smaller GPUs, they don't have the extra space to cram in RT cores. So
there's a lot of talk in chat on all the sites about mining. How do you think this is going to look for miners? Are we going to get another problem going?
I have no idea. I wouldn't expect ray tracing cores to necessarily help mining, and I would expect a bunch of the tensor cores to be stripped out of the consumer version. Mining's kind of at a low point right now anyway. That's why cards are starting to sell for regular prices again.
Well, ASICs are taking over too, right? For the most part, they're projected. So that's
and Ethereum crashed yesterday, so.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know. I saw some EVGA deal, 1080 with a 750 watt power supply. It's like, wow, that's pretty good for like $500. It's like, oh, that's a pretty good deal.
That's not bad. Maybe
pretty much the only cards that are still selling for a super high premium are on the high end are the Vega cards because they just are beasts at compute. So
and people are still using them for mining, I guess.
Huh.
Oh.
Well,
that's some good news for AMD at least.
Yeah. People are looking forward to this, but I think it's of course going to be slow to launch and sold out at the beginning. So How is Nvidia typically with launches like this?
It usually, at least the last couple of launches, that's what's happened. It sells out pretty quickly. They often sell for somewhat inflated prices. At least for the 1080 series, the custom cards from partners came about a month after the Founders Edition cards. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. That's what some earlier leaks have said. So if you want one, and you want one now, I would recommend trying to get it as soon as orders open up.
But I mean,
that being said, it depends, because what AMD's been doing recently is making pre-orders available before reviews in the card is available, right? So Threadripper was available to pre-order a week before reviews and before it actually hit the streets. I think you should never pre-order pretty much anything, games, hardware, whatever, until reviews are out and you know how it works. This is the same. If Nvidia opens pre-orders early, I would still say that for this, especially because we don't know how these RT cores are going to affect the new streaming multiprocessors. We don't know how this card's going to wind up handling. So,
yeah, usually it's safer to wait and see what people think.
But these might sell out fast. So
yeah, that's the thing, right? This is like the first new GPU from Nvidia, and good lord, how long? I don't remember even when they came out.
2.5 years. It was August or May 5th or 6th, 2016.
Well, do you think...
I remember I had to miss my kid's birthday for it.
Oh, yikes. So do you think now is a good time to buy a graphics card, or should people wait to see what goes on here?
It's hard these days, man, with mining being so variable, but we've been on the downswing for a while. We're starting to see some pretty good deals for graphics cards. You can get some 8 gigabyte RX 580s. We've been seeing them down as low as 210 for the 8 gigabyte version. You're seeing the high end Nvidia cards selling for well under MSRP all the time. If you've been waiting for a time to buy those things, I mean, now's a good time to buy it, unless you think you're going to get buyer's remorse. But I have a strong inkling that the next generation of Nvidia graphics cards are going to cost, a decent amount more than this one. So,
but you'll get the ray tracing capabilities. So
that's true.
I'm still floored that they can do what a Titan V took 4 Titan Vs to run, and they're doing it
that's
with a
crazy.
single card. It's just nuts. How do you? That is, even for Nvidia, that seems like, that is a big leap. Have they done that before? I'm just trying to think of whether 1080 or 980 or any of the previous generations.
Well, this is a whole new kind of technology with whole new kind of dedicated hardware to it. And I agree with what John Petty was saying in the NVIDIA release, that people didn't expect a card to be able to run that demo by itself so soon. So it's real interesting.
Yeah.
Elvis on YouTube saying you should wait for Black Friday and Elena's alerts. There you go.
Yeah, I bet those 10 series cards will get even cheaper by then, right? I mean, probably.
Mm-hmm. Just to circle back on that pre-order thing, though, NVIDIA in the past, they always do, this is going to be faster than, they said the GTX 1070 is faster than the GTX 980 Ti, right? And every time that they say that, testing, that's proven true. So if they come out on the launch day, whenever they announce it, if they do in fact announce it on August 20th, and they say, hey, the GTX 1080 or RTX 2080, I'm going to have so much trouble with that, is 50% faster than the 1080 Ti.
Ooh.
Believe it. I mean, I would, they don't make that up. It's usually only 1% faster than what they're saying, but it is what they say in my past experience.
They're not just sort of cherry picking their results to make it look good then. Yeah. In general, the history of them. Dang, I was just thinking that, because if they've redesigned the new cores, the streaming cores, I guess potentially they could be, faster at legacy, shader operations than, even with fewer cores. So it may not necessarily mean they have to sacrifice those cores in order to pick up performance in today's games.
Yep. For what it's worth, though, these new Quadro GPUs have huge die sizes. But they do also, because NVIDIA is shrinking down to the 12 nanometer N or NV or whatever process at TSMC, they do have, even though they have the RT cores, they do have more CUDA cores than the Pascal versions. So it actually has less CUDA cores than, or fewer CUDA cores than Volta. But Volta looks like it's just going to wind up being a big specialized beast that's not ever going to come to consumers.
For machine learning and like, and they're still an HBM. They are HBM2, I think, on Voltas, right? So that's... Do you think it says something about them using GDDR6 rather than HBM2?
Yeah, you can afford it.
And you can get 16 gigs in. Who knows how much they can stack in there, but...
Because if you look at Vega cards, they use HBM2. And they've still never once actually sold outside the initial 12 hours for what they're supposed to sell for. Mining does play part of that, but, you know, Scuttlebutt Around says those cards actually cost very close to what they were selling them for because HBM2 costs so much. So I'm not surprised to see GDDR6. It still looks like a big boost over GDDR5X. At this point, it doesn't really, you know, memory bandwidth bottlenecking doesn't really seem to be a problem with both cards anyway.
Right.
We got a good question over on Twitch from Bestwee.
One of these
something
days.
like that.
One of these days.
For a consumer card with a new technology, and it scrolled away. They had to show a game using this new tech. Gamescom, best timing for showing it, and what game do you think it'll be if they do show it at Gamescom?
Gamescom
2077. Throwing a lot of money at CD Projekt Red to get some ray tracing in there right now.
I wouldn't be surprised. Nvidia has a pretty tight relationship with Ubisoft. If they're going to show ray tracing in a game at Gamescom, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a fancy option
Crysis?
in the Division 2.
Oh, the Division 2, huh?
I was saying Epic, because usually that's like a perfect time to break Epic out, right? Somebody top end on Epic come out and say, hey, we're supporting, you know, ray tracing.
Check out this ray tracing in Fortnite.
Check out this.
Yeah,
We could never do it
Fortnite.
before. Yeah, in Fortnite. Oh, that would be interesting.
Oh,
right?
yeah, right. Yeah, no, you know, maybe they'll show it on Crysis. You know, there you go. Oh, that's EA, huh? That's not
Crytek could use the money these days. So.
Really?
They got that Cry coin. What are you talking about?
Huh. So what do we know? We don't know memory bandwidth. We don't know how much RAM exactly in the consumer cards.
No, we don't know any fine details like that. Consumer cards, they were just teased, hinted at in those cryptid secrets in the video.
Well, wait, so they really announced it secretly in this video? Is that what?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's. So you decoded this. You got your Captain Crunch decoder, and you figured out it's GeForce RTX 2080.
I was writing the article last night, just the Turing GPU, what people need to know article, when this tweet came by, and I watched it, and I just noticed at the end that it's the date 2080. It jumped right out to me that they slowly spun up. So after that, I paid more attention.
Brad also works for the NSA, spotting these patterns. I mean, that's just like crazy.
That's funny. Yeah, actually, it was a good article you did over on PCWorld. I'm actually going to put a link in the chat because that was a nice big comprehensive article of what we know so far.
Wow.
So.
I mean, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just still floored, frankly, that they can run that demo. Because I saw the demo. I've seen it a couple times, but the machine they run it on, it just howls, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of those DGX boxes.
They were looking at the demo at E3, and they took a video of the demo running real-time ray tracing on and off so that you can see the difference. And then they panned over and showed the machine itself, and it's just loaded with $3,000 Titan Vs. So.
Over on Facebook, Veljko says maybe Metro Exodus that would show off ray tracing pretty well.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I was thinking of too.
That'd be pretty cool.
Wow. So who's gonna?
I was just pulling a guess out of the hat because they've Ubisoft and Nvidia have a long history together. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. But I would expect Epic. I mean, it's a games conference, so I would expect a few high-profile developers to come out and say they're supporting technology.
Tyrant Worm on YouTube's asking, is this another NVIDIA attempt to jack people into a bespoke engine solution?
What is bespoke? I don't even get that whole thing as an American.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we're gonna have to see what the implementation winds up being, but support for ray tracing graphics, there's a standard. It's built into DirectX now, DirectX ray tracing API. So,
we have a special guest, Melissa Riofrio. Hi.
Oh shit!
Hi, Melissa.
I'm gonna go away.
No, what's wrong? It's-
Is it right?
Figuring out some testing stuff. And over on Google, bespoke is made to order. Made to order.
So yeah, we'll have to see. The technology is built into DirectX now. Nvidia is obviously trying to put its special sauce on top of it with RTX technology. That's going to be found in these cards. We don't know what RTX technology actually is at this point. We don't know if it is the physical RT cores or if the physical RT cores are part of it. We don't know if ray tracing will even explode in the near future because AMD cards don't have that yet. So we'll have to see.
Right. Is there... God, my brain is just completely fried this morning. Do we know... Is it DirectX 12? Is it already in the current version of DirectX 12? Or there's no DirectX 12. When are we going to expect this actually in Windows?
I believe they put it out earlier this year. They were putting it out when they announced it. So.
Okay, so the ray tracing is in the existing build of Windows then.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Or I'm 99% sure. So 99% sure. They had planned to work it in there very shortly after announcing it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why they that just tells you how together I am this morning. DirectX 12 has been out for a while. There's just no games that really support it. So, yeah, this is I guess because a lot of the fear is that getting back to the person who was afraid of the game engine, it doesn't have to be GameWorks, right? I guess but it is their version of RTX or something or ray tracing.
We'll have to see what the implementation winds up being. I'm not sure. I don't know specifically. RT cores could just be hardware like AMD's asynchronous compute hardware inside of Radeon cards. It's just hardware to make those tasks faster. RT cores could be the same thing, but RTX technology they've described as a blend of hardware and software designed to optimize ray tracing.
Huh. Do we have any idea of power draw? Just asking random questions that I know you have no answer to.
30.
Yeah.
No, I have no idea.
Huh. Wow, so it's real. It's gonna come. I mean, all the hints pointing to Gamescom. So, wow.
All of Nvidia's hints are pointing to Gamescom.
They're not even being coy about it at this point.
No, the dude it's RTX talking to 911 saying, "Give me 20." And if that wasn't subtle enough, right immediately after that is another chat by somebody named Mac20 talking to somebody named AT. So.
Oh, okay, that's a little.
So, we have months and months and months of people angry about leaks, driving everybody crazy, and then now they just start giving away the information. So, I don't understand the.
But one thing that actually is interesting from that video, aside from the jokes, is that the Discord user that put in the coordinates that turns out to be in Cologne is Elena T or Alana T, like Alan Turing.
Uh-huh.
So that seems to confirm that there will in fact be Turing GPUs inside of the next GeForce. It won't wind up being an Ampere or whatever.
What happened to Ampere and Volt and all that? It's just simply smoke and vapors, or what?
Maybe sussing out leakers, changing plans.
Everybody was so sure it was 1180 just 2 weeks ago. I mean, they were absolutely sure,
except for me.
Yeah. Well, except for you, but
what do I know?
Why did they skip the 11? Huh?
20 is bigger.
I mean, yeah, it does make it feel like a more substantial jump, right? We're like, oh no, instead of going by 100, now we're going by 1,000.
Yeah, I would have expected them to completely change that whole 2080 thing, or 80 numbers.
Oh,
but we're still going maybe 2090. I don't know.
One thing, can I go on an aside here for a second?
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting to me is RTX is getting pretty close to Radeon RX, right? And with that, now that we have that in mind, some of the maneuvering they were doing with the GeForce Partner Program kind of makes a little bit more fiscal sense or business sense why they were so interested in making that difference and that difference between brands.
Huh.
Yeah, huh. No, it does. It does sound pretty close to RX, doesn't it? Huh. I just can't imagine somebody getting confused though and seeing that it's GeForce, but maybe. I don't know.
GeForce RX 2080.
Yeah, even if they called it there's no way anybody would mix it up, right? I can't imagine it ever happening. It's not like an Intel AMD chipset. C299, X299. I still can't get them straight at this point. So.
Oh, and Elvis on YouTube says 2080 is the MSRP. That's what they're alluding to.
It could be.
That's pretty good.
Wow. So now it's just a matter of waiting to see how good this is on a consumer card. Obviously, this wowed people already at the professional conference. SIGGRAPH, right? It was at SIGGRAPH they broke this out.
Yep. And I mean, people in the audience might not know, but big name people like John Petty, respected experts, John Petty, David Cantor. I saw Tim Sweeney from Epic. They were all just like tweeting how blown away they were. So it's impressing people.
Yeah, I mean, 4 Titan V's down to 1 card in your gaming desktop. So that's going to be crazy. If, of course, we get close to that performance. There's really nothing to imply that you won't, though, right? Because, I mean, you're looking at Quadro level of graphics, but it just feels like the way they would blow everybody away. You can't build up these expectations to get real-time ray tracing and then not get it on consumer cards, right? I mean, that...
with them calling it the RTX 2080, I'm sure it'll be in there. So,
but I wonder.
It sounds like we'll know more in 6 days if Nvidia's own video is anything to go by.
Well, to take us to the next topic, Bastel over on Twitch is asking, when will we see the first dual socket Threadripper boards to power these cards?
Oh, it's not going to happen. Sorry, Threadripper is not wired up for. As far as I know, it's not wired up for 2 sockets, mini sockets.
Yeah,
you get the same thing with Intel. Way back in the old days, you actually could just, plug 2 Pentium 2s into a normal consumer motherboard. It wasn't a big deal. And then when they sort of started pushing Xeon really hard, they're like, oh, we're going to turn off that functionality. So for a long time, consumer CPUs have been single socket. And
that sound you heard was the joke flying over Gordon's head.
Oh, was it? I'm just. I think I'm a little sedated on a little bit of painkiller, so I think that's. Wait, did I miss that?
Let's talk about some Threadripper too.
Wait, what joke did I miss? What that?
He was saying, when will dual socket Threadripper boards come out to be able to power these crazy Nvidia cards? It was just a joke.
Oh, okay.
I think so, at least.
Yeah, it was just a joke.
Okay, I don't get it. Obviously,
he wasn't really asking. Oh, nah!
Yeah, see, I'm not the only one off today.
I hit the wrong button.
Oh, but shout out to Steve. Look at this cool mug.
There you go. Gamers Nexus.
Gamers Nexus.
Yes. Love it.
Great swag kit from Gamers Nexus. Yeah, no, you're not to be serious. Yeah, you can't do dual socket Threadripper. It just can't be done.
I don't think he thought. He just was just making a...
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah. I totally was like, all right. Well, technically, you can't really make a lightsaber because the light wouldn't stop it. You do have people that say that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, you couldn't have warp speed. Come on. It's a science fiction show, man. Totally missing out on the whole, so Threadripper, that's a good segue to Threadripper 2. We have a review video on the website already. We shot that last week, and that
was comprehensive. We sat and talked for a good half an hour, and went over the charts. People seem to like it, and especially the addition of running 2 things at once. To show off the multitasking stuff, which I want to add. And a couple of people had commented on this within the past 8 hours. Sorry. Somebody made a good point. We should try to render out a video project and then waiting for the render load up a game, because that's what I would do if I could do that.
Yeah, I mean,
like the way you think.
Yeah. Right.
And I think I responded because I've done that actually. I did that when 10-core Broadwell came out, because then it was Kaby Lake versus 10-core Broadwell E. and I really thought, okay, I'm going to do, I'm going to do an encode in the background, and I'm going to play games. And interestingly, because everybody thinks your frame rates will just like be horrible, but actually, on the KB Lake part, it was fine. Like the frame rates were virtually the same between both machines, so you could play the game. But of course, the encode or render or any of the other work you're doing just took longer and longer. But Microsoft is very good about pushing those gaming loads to the forefront of the OS.
Yeah, so I think that would be pretty funny and actually a pretty good use case too.
It would be, but would you really do that as a video? I guess you could. Because then you're burning a couple
I've
hours.
thought about it. Well, I mean, it depends too. Like even if it's like a real low intensive game, like I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's like the turn-based strategy thing that came out earlier this year. Anyway, like that would be kind of fun to at least know that you have that overhead. But yeah. Well, why don't we back up for the people who haven't seen the video and give the high level of second gen Threadripper. What does it do? Who's it good for?
Right.
Why should you get it?
So we finally reviewed it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, 32 cores, crazy. That is a momentous number in itself, right? 32 cores from 16 from last year.
Oh yeah.
Consumer CPU, but really this is a CPU made for professional pixel pushers. And you really got to push pixels professionally. Like you're basically a 3D modeler renderer. It's the perfect CPU for that. Not exactly.
Because only that software really can make use of it? Is that why it's really for them?
Yeah, for the most part. I think a lot of the strength of 32 cores is there are very few applications in the PC that really can use that many threads. I mean, what are you really doing that's like video encoding is I've never seen it scale what you would expect even on 18 core versus 10, right? You don't pick up a huge amount by continually adding cores. So, but definitely for 3D modeling, going to 64 threads is insane, right? 5,000 versus 3,000 on an 18 core Skylake X. Outside of that, it's a pretty difficult thing to push. I mean, clearly I saw a lot of comments from, gamers like, oh, well, games aren't going to be faster. It's like, no, sorry. It's not going to happen. Games are still inherently about, single thread, maybe two threads. If you're lucky, high clocks, So,
but it has the gaming mode, so
it does have the gaming mode.
Get gaming performance out of it, right?
It is, yeah, and actually you get decent. It's not like it's not going to run because, to be honest, gaming is all about the GPU. Still about 90% about the graphics card, so it doesn't really matter. But I just think if somebody, I think Threadripper 2 is, hey, I'm a freelancer. I work at home. I get all these 3D modeling, projects thrown at me freelance, and I need the fastest machine I can get. Well, Threadripper 2, or which we're incorrectly calling Threadripper 2, it's actually second generation Ryzen Threadripper. So, but it's easier to just call Threadripper 2. It really is that perfect tool for that person. For a gamer, if you're going to be 90% gamer, 80% gaming, no, it's a complete waste of your money. Don't buy it. Go buy something else. Buy a Ryzen 7, go out and buy a Core i7, right? So it doesn't make any sense. The interesting thing is, for somebody like Adam, so a video editor, you could argue that it's even too much there because there are some issues with second-gen Threadripper. It is 32 cores. One, you don't necessarily scale up to get all that video encoding performance. But, I think it was hardware unboxed. They seem to have a better beat for it, and I'm still checking it out, but they really do think that the configuration of Threadripper 2, which is 4 CPUs in the CPU itself. 2 of those share the memory controller with another die. So it's like essentially having your apartment share the bathroom with the apartment next door to you. So it can be a problem sometimes. You got to go.
That is definitely a problem.
And, definitely for 3D modeling, it doesn't seem to make any difference because, again, I ran Blender and I ran Cinebench. Those loads did not run out of memory bandwidth or weren't hurt necessarily by the latency of going outside the chip. But encoding, a lot of compression, decompression, like 7-zip is one thing that everybody was using. And I was actually running some tests right before this started, which is why I had no idea what was going on with RTX. I was trying to find out if we're seeing performance improve in 7-zip by running it in the quarter game mode. So you would run it in quarter game mode, which means you're only running it on the one die. So you're not going outside the die. And I'm trying to compare that to running it on 2 dies with 2 memory controllers on, and then on 4 dies with a shared memory controller configuration.
That's because 7-zip delivered lower results than you expected, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, it was lower than expected, and I think a lot of people were saying it does look like it's the memory bandwidth issue, and I'm starting to think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure it's all there though, but
I was speaking of that particular test. I guess what I've been looking around for Ronix, which is the popular Linux site, benchmarks the 2990WX, and it's for Ronix test suite, and it got much higher results in Linux in 7-zip or whatever alternative than we're seeing on Windows. So there's some thought that it might be the way just Windows is handling it, or the Windows version of that software is handling it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in chat mentioning that testing
from Ronix.
Sure. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and I can see it because it's a lot. It's Windows. Yeah, a lot of people say, oh well, Windows will address all those cores. It does, but it's probably not. It's not really made to address all those cores for consumer workload. They're probably like, yeah, you're running Windows Server, and the server workloads are very different than what you're running as a consumer. So I think it makes a lot of sense that there's tuning that has to be done on Windows, because who the hell expected this to show up this soon, right?
I think it was our video that I saw where I saw a screenshot of the task manager with the performance tab open and showed all the cores, and there were so many threads that it didn't even have the little squiggly lines.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't. So yeah,
I remember when I first saw that, Gordon, had brought it up, and I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
Just too many squiggly things. So anyway, so let's check this out. So I ran on the 2990 WX, although I wrote it in quickly here. So single core in quarter mode. So that's 1 die. The latest 7-zip 18.10, I think. 6411 was the performance. And then I went to the half die, or 2 and 2, so 2 dies, and it was 6346. This is single threaded performance only. And then for all 4 dies hot, and it would drop down to 5333, right? So and even though it is a single threaded test, I kind of wonder if when you're running all the dies hot, they just have the other links going to the other dies that are just using up. They're now dedicated links to those other dies, so you're just going to lose some memory bandwidth and add that latency. So, and just for reference, a 18 core Skylake X is 6042. So actually, single threaded performance between a 7980XE and a 2990WX, it's actually less in the legacy mode, quarter and half. But definitely when you have all 4 dies hot, all 32 cores going, it's losing. So there's a lot of evidence to support that memory latency and memory bandwidth issue could be the reason why the encoding performance is kind of
Vignesh over on YouTube's asking, is there any chance of retesting the 2990WX with Windows Server to test this theory?
I mean, I suppose, but it's just kind of, you have to realize you got to stop chasing the rabbit down the hole, because eventually you will be testing every single permutation possibly.
So there was another question earlier. I'm sorry, I it scrolled past and I can't find it. But they were asking, is this a good chip to get to future-proof yourself? Could you say, hey, sure, maybe it doesn't use all 32 cores now, but if I get it, before, then I'm good for a long while.
I think my feeling on that is, if you're worried about future-proofing, I think you would be future-proof just as much with the 16-core version that costs $900 now, I think it is.
Right. And that is looking very much like the sweet spot of these new CPU launches so far, right? Because there's only 2 dies. They both have their own memory controller. You don't have to have these 2 CPU dies. I don't think it makes sense. The only way I would say that makes sense is, hey, I work at Starbucks. I'm about to get a full-time job, doing this freelance, as a 3D modeler. Then yeah, definitely. If you really think you're going to be getting into 3D modeling or things that are just super, super highly threaded modeling, rendering, yeah, it's worth it because this thing pays for itself in a lot of ways in time saved. But for a normal consumer, just to do it, no, probably not. 16 cores is probably almost too much, even. Even there, it's almost too much. Like, honestly, for most people, Ryzen 7, Core i7 still make a lot more sense. 8 cores, right?
I always considered 16 core, like, get this, it's a niche GPU. It's a niche. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that. The 32 core version is like a niche of a niche. Like, if you
well, we have some people asking, would you rather get the first gen 16 core, the second gen 16 core? What are you getting for that price difference? Depending on the sale, you can find. Well, because we've seen that 16 core drop pretty good.
$500, right? 400.
I can't remember.
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Because you definitely are getting better clocks out of the second gen parts. This, even the
better clocks and IPC, right?
Yeah, slightly better IPC, less latency in the cache. A lot of like new goodness that we saw in Ryzen 7. 2700X, you get in these new chips. But I gotta say, if you're looking at, was it $800? Is it $900?
$900 for the new one.
$900 versus say $550 on the first one.
Buy the 550.
That's a whole damn video card.
16-core chip for $550. Just don't even ask questions. Just go buy.
But the list on the chip is I think $650 now. I finally updated my chart on how many per threads. It's like $650.
They're just trying to burn those out of the house, man. They're just clearing shelves on those first gen parts.
I guess the thing is, but you're looking at $300 save that you put toward either more RAM, bigger SSD, or bigger video card. I would not be unhappy with a 16 core first gen Threadripper and the next step up video card, or 2 terabyte SSD or whatever I want. So that is a really tough one. I don't know,
especially because. Think about it. Like we've been saying, if you're in the market for a 16-core chip to begin with, it's because you need all the cores.
Right.
If you have something that needs all the cores, usually it doesn't need maximum clock speeds. Giving up 200 or 300 megahertz between the first and second gen, I think it's worth the $300 to get all those cores for $550 or whatever.
Yeah, I think so too. I'd have to do it because it just, you got to go. I mean, it's just too good of a deal to pass up. So. Of course, I guess you could argue, like, if you don't need all those cores, it wouldn't be better just to build a Ryzen 7 2700X box? $300?
It depends, because Threadripper also has 64 PCIe lanes. There's nothing else like that. So.
For storage, it's crazy on the storage. And also, you can run more max RAM and all that stuff. But, boards pricier, everything is a little pricier. So, I don't know, man. I don't think I could, or I don't know. Man or woman, I don't know what I'd do there. So, Brad, what would you do? You would do the.
I would get if it depends on the sale amount, but I would probably lean towards the first gen one if it's on significant sale.
Okay.
Well, but the top level takeaways, this is really only for specific use cases. I mean,
for 32 core?
Yeah,
it's very
even
very
16 core to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Although I got to say that new one's probably very decent all around. It's really in a good spot. 32 cores is you don't really, most people don't need this, but for the people who do, you really need this. So
especially, I mean,
if you need it, you already know it.
Yeah, and I read that somewhere. That's a really good way to put it. If you need it, you know it, because.
Also, Kyle from Hard OCP is in here, and he's saying for an affordable gaming and streaming box, 2700X is his no-brainer for sure.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah. Totally. And I thought it was pretty interesting, especially when you were doing the multitasking section. That what was it, Premiere, where the Intel just creamed the Threadripper.
Yeah.
But then when you did Premiere and something else at the same time, Intel just dropped, and Threadripper was actually able to do faster than when that was just the only thing it was doing.
Yeah, that's where we simultaneously encoded with Adobe Media Encoder, HEVC, the Blu-ray H.264, a YouTube H.264, and a Vimeo H.264. So 4 different presets sort of tuned for those 4 different mediums. And it did, I think, one of those things, somebody who's been around testing for a long time, there is no one rule that applies to everything, because clearly, there are, memory bandwidth, latency, by design, weaknesses with Threadripper 2nd Gen series. But depending on what you're doing, it may not matter. So, because we could definitely induce loads where it didn't matter and it was still fast in the 18-core Intel part. So, although I wonder, does Intel have to chase them though? I mean, the whole 28-core thing, I just kind of like, it feels like AMD is just baiting Intel into following them. Trying something where they can't really compete, you know? AMD can give you 32 cores and it's no big deal. For Intel to give you 32 cores, or 28 cores, it's going to be tough.
Especially because they have the monolithic dies and they also have the Xeon profit margins that they don't want to eat into.
Right. So there's an argument for Intel just saying, let's not even do this 28 core part. You know what? You want to play 32 cores, go ahead and do it. But that's got to be tough. That'd be a tough pill for Intel to swallow, I bet. But any other questions?
We got PVT Ghost asking, do you think the 32 core will decrease game developer window maps? Will developers shell out the current relative same results in the same window?
I don't think so. I got to say, I actually tried there. Let's just say that when there's new CPU launches, various companies will float you, hey, check this test out. We think it's a really good use case. Yeah, okay. One of them was using Unity to build a project out, which I was like, okay, that actually makes sense. That sounds like a really good thing. And I went ahead and I tested this, and I was really disappointed in the threading in Unity. It just was not, I don't know if it's memory bandwidth, but it certainly looked to me like it just wasn't heavily multi-threaded. I think a lot of developer tools are not the magic we think they are. So I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. You have to I think you have to go for the right amount of cores and the right amount of frequency for what you do. Unless, of course, the argument would be, hey, I'm rendering assets out in the background. So you're rendering out 3D assets in the background, then yeah, okay. That's definitely going to be worth it.
Yeah, Raphael over on Facebook says he sure could use a Threadripper 2 in 2080 for Autodesk.
I wonder. I'm not... Oh, and yeah, for Autodesk. Is it? I don't even know. I'm actually very disappointed by a lot of workstation applications that really just don't push the hardware as much as you think they would sometimes.
Yeah. And people are asking about the discrepancies of release. Do you have that chart to remind them about when the different versions of Threadripper is coming out?
All right, yeah, because you gotta. So obviously the 32 core is pre-sale now. I don't know when it's actually.
No, it's on sale.
It's
now.
on sale now.
Well.
Yep, as of yesterday.
Let me pull that data up.
Is it already sold out? Have we checked?
It wasn't this morning.
Really?
Okay.
People just didn't have $1,800 to just get.
The other one, I think it was the 2950X, the 16 core, if I remember correctly. That was the end of this month, right?
Yeah. So 2990WX out today, $1,800. August 13th is when it launched. 2950X, 16 cores. August 31st, $899, $900. And then all the way in October, we get the 24-core part, 2970WX, same 4-die configuration. Some of those dies turned off, $1299. And then also at the very end, we're going to get the 12-core 2920X for $649 in October 2018. So, interesting. That didn't sell out. I was just thinking it might actually sell out pretty quickly, but. Do you think people kind of
$1,800?
I didn't get a chance to see all the other coverage. Was it more negative or positive, or some of it I saw was pretty good.
It's pretty much where we landed, because I spent yesterday looking around. I mean, if you can use those cores and find ways to use those cores, this thing is the chip of your dreams basically. But most people aren't going to need that 32 core power.
But does it even make sense for AMD to pursue this in some ways? Hey,
it's sold out on Newegg right now.
Oh, it did sell out on Newegg. No, I mean, people are going to go, well, did it make sense to do this because it's such a
and
niche...
it's out on Amazon.
Oh,
so
it's officially a hit. It's sold out. So it's officially a hit.
This just in.
Do you think, I mean, like, some people are going to go, like, I don't know if this really is a consumer part. Should they really push this as a consumer part? But I think it was a good idea because it puts them in a leadership role no matter what.
Yeah, I think you always have to have that dream thing, because then it makes the 16 core look like even a better deal. right?
Yeah, that's true. It is.
But also, I mean, I think there can be valid people who would want this in freelancers, like you said, in their PC, who are not going to spend the money on Epic or are not going to spend the money on Xeon. I think there is a niche of a niche audience, but it is there, I think.
Yeah, and it's a steal because, again, that 28-core Xeon is $8,700, right? So 32 cores for $1,800 is a steal. Yeah.
Luke Hits over on YouTube's asking, has anyone compared Intel's 28-core to Threadripper 2?
You can't yet.
Yeah, you can't.
It's not out.
Desktop version is not out yet. The server version probably it would not be fair to Xeon in some ways because it's probably not going to hit the same higher clocks as a desktop part.
Mm-hmm.
And it is
there
wired
were
for multi.
rumors popping up yesterday about that 28-core chip using a new X599 motherboard or something like that.
Huh.
That makes sense because, I mean, although I don't really know what's going to happen because we know at Computex that 28 cores, a lot of people think it was Skylake X in a server board. It was a server board. Mm-hmm. But clearly consumers are not going to buy an 8-channel server motherboard for $3,000, right? So, they're going to have to come up with a new socket and a new chipset for this new part when it comes out.
Yep. So that's, to me, kind of one of the upsides of this, core war. Is that people who are video editors, who are 3D modelers, but don't work for big companies, are finally starting to be addressed by these companies, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is awesome. Right?
And Hardo CP Kyle is adding that, they created a new low-end workstation market, that this wasn't necessarily a straight consumer part. This is something that Intel doesn't offer.
Yeah, it is really weird, too, because, I mean, they don't really have a Xeon workstation lineup. Epic is really pretty much a server part at this point.
Yep.
But I just kind of like, is it fair to really call this a consumer CPU? I don't know.
Well, I think that's why they gave it the WX.
Yeah.
I don't know. High-end desktop doesn't necessarily mean consumer, I think. I think once you move on to high-end desktop, it's more prosumer kind of a deal.
Right.
And I think this fits in that. And interestingly enough, at SIGGRAPH this weekend, or ahead of SIGGRAPH, yesterday, the same day that this launched, this 32-core chip, AMD actually launched a new Radeon Pro WX card, faster version with Vega 56, I believe it is, to match. So you have WX CPU and WX GPU coming out the exact same day.
Wow. But it's just a 56, not a 64?
Oh, I believe so. I forget. It's 56, though. But it's higher memory speeds.
Okay. It's
the initial
editions,
rounds of
right?
Vega were kind of memory constrained. It's looking like this one's not.
And these are not the new 7-nanometer parts that everybody keeps saying is going to
I'm not sure.
All right.
So,
Can't be, though.
I just know it came out.
It's got to be a bigger deal than that. If they did 7-nanometer parts, it's got to be a bigger deal than that, right?
Mm.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, I think it was a good time to test that. And what's next up for you? Are you gonna try out the 16-core? Are you gonna wait for the other versions?
I really do need to just rip out that 32-core, put in the 16-core just to see how good it is. I think it's going to be really the sweet spot. And also, although I want to sort of like do a little more memory bandwidth, memory latency, testing to see how much of a big deal it is. So people seem really worried over that. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think the general consensus in the chat, and then also with some of the other YouTube review videos that I watched, is that 16 core is probably going to be that sweet spot. So I think a lot of people are interested about it. I got a very curious question from Elvis over on YouTube. He's asking, does Jim ever ask your opinions when you do these reviews?
Sure. I mean, we talk offline. I don't do these interviews for you to hear my lips flop. That's what this show's for. So we talk about things, I mean, my general advice to technology people is take advice from journalists and then go 180 degrees in the opposite direction because that's how accurate we usually are. But no, everybody loves to talk, right? Everybody, that's the best thing about working in this industry. It's just all the chit chat and and figuring out who's doing what here to who's doing that, what motivated this. Well, then they came out with that part, but then they had to come out with this part, and then that made them come out with this part. It's like, it's all a Game of Thrones kind of thing. But, you know,
most people in the industry, even at the big companies, tend to be pretty receptive to feedback. I mean, in the process of testing these, you know, cutting edge high tech products, you run into cutting edge, bleeding edge issues sometimes. So you're always conversing back and forth, talking with the people at AMD, at Nvidia, at Intel, etc.
Yeah. And to be fair, they do want to pick our minds because we are sort of super consumers. So we get to touch everything. We get to play with everything. We interface with all the different companies, so we get all information. So it's really like a super concentrated, you know, what you would get out of some consumers, all from one person.
Also, Kyle would like to add that he loves your lips.
Oh.
So, you know, yeah. Kyle's a big fan from Hard OCP.
From flapping the lips. We got to have Kyle back on here.
Yeah. Well, you know, and he's saying, let me find it real quick. He's going to put the 2950X in his personal box. He's saying he's getting overclocking to 4.2 easily across all cores on water. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just running CLC, so I will say, kicking the 32 core down to 16 core, the clocks were higher all the time, so it would not fall out of boosts, which is very interesting. You know, and I had that issue with the 32 core Threadripper that AMD says, yeah, we're seeing that as well. If you fired up Ryzen Master, it wouldn't hit top boost even on single threaded loads because Ryzen Master was putting so much of a strain on it that it was like kicking out a turbo, which is a little weird. So
the overclocking software was knocking the overclock so it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it really was. Which is like, okay, but the weird thing I noticed is Steam would do it. And it took me, when I finally realized, because at the very end I ran a couple games because you just got to run them. I wasn't going to really do them because anybody who really led this off with gaming as a primary use for it, they're not using it right, as Steve Jobs would say, right?
It's still worth testing, though.
It's still, you have to test it, but I just got to say, it's like that's the last thing you should really care about with the 32 core work CPU. But Steam, just having Steam running on the machine would kick it out of its turbo states. So wow. I think there's some tuning that still has to happen on the 32 core part. So, but you're just like, this total socket power is 250 watts. You would just do something and it'd be like 250 watts, and then it would just be limited by probably socket power, I guess.
Kyle from Hard OCP is saying that with the 2990WX overclocked to 4 gigahertz, he saw socket wattages go up to 580 watts.
Yeah, I just can't see doing that on a $1,800 CPU. It's just like, it's like the 16 core. Okay, that's like, okay, that's doable because it's probably manageable. I bet it's way more manageable, and you don't feel like you don't feel as bad. But you nuke a $1,800 CPU, you're going to feel pretty bad. I bet.
Unless your boss paid for it.
Unless your boss paid for it, then who cares? But
nice. Cool. Well, we'll look forward to that. And then just to loop back to the 2080 discussion to finish it off. Who is it? Luke Steven over on Facebook's asking, are we going to get a mini full nerd on August 20th if NVIDIA shows off 2080? And I'll say that we did talk about maybe doing a live stream of that event if they end up putting up one. That would be kind of fun to talk over.
I think it would be fun to talk over.
They said they're doing a live stream.
Okay.
But I wonder if it'll be on U.S. time or whether it'll be 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, true.
I did the time conversion. The time the event starts works out to 12:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, perfect.
Pacific West on the East Coast. On the East Coast.
Oh, so 3:30. Okay, I was about to say we could eat our lunch.
9:30 for you.
9:30.
Oh, 9:30. Oh, okay.
I say we do it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So we'll keep an eye on that because I think what was the last one we did? Where we talked over an event. Was it an Apple event?
I think the last time we actually did it was when Lisa Su announced Ryzen, wasn't it? One of the Ryzen.
We did one of those.
Been on any of them.
No.
Yeah, we did one of those.
Yeah, we did that. We did an Apple event and we did a Ryzen event. So
yeah. People always get mad at us because we'll start talking over the stream. They're like, I'm trying to listen. It's like, well,
Tune into the stream. Why are you watching this? It's like complaining about talking in Mystery Science Theater. I don't get it. That's what you're here for. The
Shut
witty
up.
banter.
Shut up. We got the movie going on. Damn
But
it.
yeah, I think it's worth. I don't know how are we going to do that because people will want to know what the heck is happening. So
Yeah. No, I think it'll be fun. To see our reactions at the same time should be pretty priceless too.
I want to see the demo. I want to see that Star Wars demo run on one single consumer card,
and how hot it is, and how many frames it's going to run at.
I mean, that's just going to be mind blowing. I think if they can really pull that off, that'll be just amazing. So
Cool.
We'll see.
All right.
6 days.
6 days.
We'll see. And we're running a little over, so let's skip the Q&A. We'll save it for next time for sure. So.
Yeah. So check back next week, maybe on Monday, for a live stream of your PC Talk on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Every time you leave a review on iTunes, I will remind you they create a new Star Wars demo at Nvidia. I'm making that up. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@PCWorld.com. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
Adios.
And Adam Patrick Murray is going to hit the off switch.
Everyone's saying that Gordon needs to stop using a MacBook, and I agree.
I haven't had to turn it up.